So I've been getting complaints recently, or well, I don't want to say complaints, but I've been getting a lot of comments recently talking about my audio and that it doesn't sound very good. And I will say I do apologize. But after doing a couple of videos in the other mic that I use on which is basically just my computer's mic, I realized that the audio on that sounds awful. So I'm going back to my Blue Snowball, which I usually use for these types of things. But I'm going to keep it closer to my mouth so you guys can hopefully hear me better. And if you hear any audio stuff, let me know. If the audio isn't good, just let me know. I'll see what I can do. Hello everyone, Britton here, also known as Some Okie Dude, and today I'm going to be covering another book. And the book I'm going to be covering today is Some Die Nameless from Wallace Stroby, who is a newer author who I found. This was kind of one of those books that I ran into kind of on a whim. I actually at first heard of this on Goodreads from a reviewer I like on there called Kemper. I'll link his review of this book down below. You can go check him out. I think he's a great reviewer. I'll admit he's not the most sophisticated in the world, but his reviews are just so funny. They're so filled with his personality. I really enjoy reading. It's very enjoyable reading. And when I go to look for crime fiction novels to read, I generally think that Kemper is a very good source because he has very good taste in crime literature. And also, I just like the idea of this novel: a ex-mercenary and a journalist unraveling this massive conspiracy that is going on with the ex-mercenary's former employer. And it turned out this book was pretty damn good for the most part. I'll admit, this book does certainly sound like your kind of standard action thriller, but luckily, Wallace Stroby manages to imbue this story with enough realism, and he manages to make it just grounded enough. He manages to make it realistic enough to feel like this could happen in our world. I mean, I was reminded a lot of the Bourne films from 2004 to... No, not 2004. 2002 to 2007, the original trilogy. I'm not going to talk about the other two films, though Jason Bourne was pretty good. Anyway, I was reminded of that in terms of its kind of commentary on the U.S. surveillance state. I mean, they're not that similar. They deal with different things. But just kind of taking that sort of almost kind of standard action story and making it more realistic, it definitely reminded me of the Bourne movies in that way. I'm glad that Stroby managed to write this way because he does show an admirable restraint in cliche and convention when it comes to the characters of this story. I mean, in the hands of a lesser writer, the character of Roy Devlin, who is the former ex-mercenary of who we're talking about, he would just be this guy just kicking ass, taking names, Arnold Schwarzenegger commando style. But luckily, Stroby manages to put some soul into him. He definitely isn't a guy you should mess with, but at the same time, the dude's older. He's getting worn down. He's more jaded about the world. He has some demons in his past, and he also has some skeletons in his closet. He also has a strained relationship with his family, which made him a very sympathetic character, in my opinion. And he's also not a dick, which is nice. The prose in this novel is very bare bones, very laconic, very to the point, and it moves along very nicely. So if you're looking for an easy read as a palate cleanser, I would definitely recommend this book as a palate cleanser. I was actually reminded, funnily enough, of the Parker novels from Richard Stark when I was reading this, because it has that very similar lean, muscular, doesn't waste a word type of prose. And it's the same thing with the storytelling. The storytelling in this is very sharp, very concise, never wastes a moment. This is probably because Wallace Stroby was a journalist before he started writing novels, which, same. One of the things, speaking of that, one of the main characters in this novel is a journalist, and I really like how I like how she's portrayed. She's not like one of those exploitative, because there's a lot of really bad depictions of journalists in fiction. They're usually like glory hounds or that guy from Die Hard who just is harassing McClane's family for clicks. Or not clicks, but, you know, I'm getting it. That's back in the 80s. This was before clicks were even a thing. But Tracy, the journalist in this, is very good, and she really wants to do her job well. She really cares about getting it right. She cares about investigating things. And the novel also explores, through Tracy's perspective, how journalism has sort of become corroded by bureaucracy, this desire to make money, and just this frivolous crap, clickbaity. Basically, all the problems that a lot of people have with journalism is discussed in this novel, and it's shown that it's even more frustrating. It's just as frustrating in a fictional context as it is for the journalists, as it is for the populace who don't even know who to trust anymore. You know, I would definitely say that the commentary isn't the deepest in the world. It definitely isn't as bitter as, say, The Wire, or as madcap as Transmetropolitan, which I did a discussion on, by the way. You should go check that out. Anyway, it certainly shines a light on how news companies are more focused on getting the clicks, getting the money, rather than, you know, doing what they're supposed to be doing. I was reminded, actually, speaking of that Transmet conversation, I'm reminded what my friend Josh said in that conversation about how people don't really investigate things anymore, and how people don't really care enough because they're so jaded by the fact that news has become so politicized, even though it was kind of always that way. But it really feels like they're being held back from doing their jobs because they don't necessarily, they don't have the resources. Again, it's very Wire-esque in that way, just not quite as bitter or bleak as The Wire is. This book definitely has a happier ending, or, well, happier, for lack of a better word. I don't know if happy would be the right word, but it wraps up nicely. But I guess that kind of brings me to what I think there is a flaw in this, which is that it kind of goes in the expected way you would think in a conspiracy thriller. It's a cool ride. I enjoyed reading about it all the way through. It was definitely engaging, and there was a lot of great characters. But you know, it kind of goes in the way that you would probably expect. If you've read conspiracy thrillers like this, you know, this kind of shady government thing that's going on. But Stroby makes up for this by creating a lot of very interesting characters, and his very bare-bones prose style and storytelling style is really what makes Some Die Nameless a good book, and I really enjoyed reading it. It's definitely, well, yeah, I'd say it's a fun book. It's a good palate cleanser if you get kind of burned out and you want something kind of, you know, you kind of want something that's a little, what's the word? You want something easier to read, and you can just kind of read it and have a good time and not really think. Well, this book does have some good commentary in it, but, you know, it is a book that, like, you don't have to think too deeply about, and you want to just read it like, okay, it's just a good story to take the time, if that makes sense. I'm just jabbering on at this moment. Some Die Nameless is a crime thriller that is engrossing, but it's also very thoughtful and also very entertaining. And I enjoyed it all the way through. It's a very tight novel. You could probably get through this in a couple days at least. Or, I mean, if you really want to be a mad lad, you could probably get through it in a day, but a couple days at least, or a week at longest, unless you really want to draw out the experience. I definitely will be checking out Stroby's other novels at some point. I know he's got one about the Chrysa Stone, who is basically his gender-swapped take on Parker. Comes back full circle. But, yeah, I'm definitely going to be checking out his works, because I think he is a very good writer. And I enjoy his, I enjoyed how his prose was so, it paints the picture nicely, but it's not, like, overly poetic or verbose. It's very to the point. It's very like, okay, this is what's going on. It's very much like a news article, because of course, again, like I said, he was a journalist, or this is backwards. He was a journalist before he was ever writing novels, and it's definitely written that way. I remember one of my teachers at my college he was always preaching to us. He's like, keep it concise, keep it clear, keep it to the point. People don't want to read crap. Pretty much is basically what he said. God, that was an interesting class. I think he would like this book, so Dr. Hannibal, if you ever watch this video, you're probably not, but if you ever do, check out Some Die Nameless. I think you'll like it. It definitely has that journalistic conciseness to its prose, where there's not really a lot of fluff in the way. Yeah, no, this is a good book. I really enjoyed reading it. I think it's a good novel to, again, like I said, I'm going to say it again, it's a good palate cleanser. Also, I finally figured out the Discord thing. I got a link that will work. I put it on permanent. If there's any problems, let me know. But yeah, go check out Some Die Nameless. I think it's a great book. Well, a very good book, I think. It's a good palate cleanser, like I said. And definitely we need those at times. And yeah, I'll definitely be checking out Stroby's books. I hope you guys enjoyed this. You can check me out on Twitter. You can check me out on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. And I'm on Discord. Like I said, I fixed the link, I think. If there is still any problems, let me know. I'll just invite you to the I'll just invite you to the chat. But yeah, come hang out with us. Yeah, no, Some Die Nameless. It's a great book. Very good book. Check it out. See you guys later. Bye-bye.